Hello and welcome to the Imelda MarCAST. Our guest today is the guitar player of the fantastic St. Louis band, the Conformists. Today we are talking to Chris Dee. Hello, and how are you?
Hey Dave, how's it going? How are you?
I'm good. How has your 2020 been?
Pretty terrible, like most people. Working from home, currently trying to lose quarantine weight, probably like most people. Yeah,
How
not so
much weight
good.
did you gain?
Oh God, I don't. Do I have to measure?
No. I'll let you off the hook for that one.
Yeah.
How have you been keeping busy creatively?
We started back up with practice after taking off for a few weeks. I feel like we got back to it a little earlier than some other bands. We decided it met our threshold of safety. So I think sometime in June, we got back together. And so we've had our twice weekly practice going. So that's been good. But
So when vocalist Mike Benker pops off the shirt in practice, does he keep the mask on?
When we started, we weren't wearing them. I guess we considered we were all part of each other's bubble. That was okay.
The Conformist pod.
That's right. Exactly. And we started again, or rather we started for the first time wearing masks about a month ago, up the safety a little bit.
If it wasn't for COVID this year, would you guys have been touring at all?
I don't know if we'd be touring. We would have recorded, and then maybe touring would have been set up for early 2021.
So you're writing material in addition to stuff that you could have recorded this year?
Yeah, we kept going with it. We set a deadline for ourselves, and the idea was just to record no matter where we were at, which is not something we'd done before. But, all this happened and some other things that put the recording off. And so we've just, continued at our normally slow pace.
Can we expect like a Conformist double album in next year?
Yeah, to make up for it, we're going to put out like a triple gatefold with lots of
with like big ass artwork.
Yeah, that's right.
On average, how many years is it between Conformist albums?
The average was 5 years, and so I think it'll end up being 6 this time if we have the recording ready to go in 2021, which hopefully we will. Yeah, it's about 5 years between records.
So I know a little bit about the Yowie work process, but I know very little about the Conformist work process. And I was telling Imelda drummer Matt about this, that I kind of like that. I don't know how it works. It's just, I get to see you guys play and I get to think, God damn, someone wrote that and then learned how to play it. So I kind of enjoyed having that mystique. But I guess now we're going to get into it and I'm going to learn how the sausage is made. So what is the Conformist work process like? Yeah, I want to ruin the mystique. Show me the rat droppings and magic that goes into that delicious Midwestern sausage.
Okay, fine. It's a lot of satanic sorcery, and there are robes and frog dust and no. Usually, I or Chris Moron, the bassist, will bring a part to practice, and we will just work it over to death. And Pat will try out different drum parts. We'll settle on something. We'll do that for a while, decide we hate it, never play it again, and then move on to the next thing. There's a lot of that. We kind of have a not very efficient filtering process where we end up keeping, I don't know, maybe 25% of the things we actually write. So that's part of the 5 years between records, but also there's a laziness factor, and we have a very relaxed approach to practice.
So it's just a massive archive of not good enough material for you guys?
Yeah, there's some recorded, some that is just lost to time and memory. But yeah, I used to, back before we had a Zoom recorder, I would bring an old school tape recorder to practice, and I would record almost every practice. And I have stacks and stacks of those tapes. What I should have been doing during quarantine is going through all that stuff for my own amusement, if nothing else. But sometimes you find an old part that you think, yeah, what didn't I like about that? And it ends up returning in some way.
So when you guys decide on whether or not a part gets to pass on, does it have to be unanimous, or can you guys outvote, let's say, Mike Benker?
I'd say almost all the time it's unanimous. And there have been a few select times here and there where Pat will say, I don't really like this part. And all the rest of us like it so much that he just has to live with it, or the same for me. But that's pretty rare. Yeah, we're a fairly democratic band when it comes to songwriting, and we're all contributing pretty equally. So I'd say we're all happy with a part when we decide it gets through.
So is Pat the difficult one?
No.
Is it you?
Pat's the youngest one, but everyone loves Pat. Pat's not difficult at all.
Take a look at my notes. I just killed the flow. I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah, get your notes.
So it seems to me, and I've heard this a little bit from Sean of Yowie, that the conformist practice, like you've said, it's more relaxed than the fascistic sort of Sean Yowie style. So I'm amazed that you guys do what you do, given that practice isn't you're standing up for 6 hours in like a farty basement. I hear you guys will take video game breaks or eat sandwiches, take naps on the floor. You guys still get it done though, so it clearly works.
That's always been my angle is, yes, we are not as disciplined as a Yowie, which no human band is. Come on.
I agree. Yeah,
let's all admit this.
That process is insane.
That's not a standard that anyone can be held to. But when we practice in a house and there was an upstairs with a TV and a PlayStation or something, that tended to distract us a little easier. And we've had those situations, but we have a dedicated practice space now. And so the idea is we go there and we can just focus on practice, but we find ways to not practice. It turns out we will always find a way to not practice.
What are the top video games for you guys? What are some band favorites?
I was never really the video game guy. I was more of a video game cheerleader. So I think for them, I remember Bond, GoldenEye was big.
Oh, yeah.
And for a time in the early 2000s, we were all playing Tony Hawk. I don't remember which one it was, but and then Sean always had something going on when we were practicing in his basement. I think he's a little bit more of a gamer. You'd have to ask him the specifics.
Yeah, I remember he has 2 old school arcade machines. I don't think I got to play them though.
Oh, that's right. He does have an actual stand-up physical machine. Forgot about that.
Yeah, because he's a nerd.
He is a total nerd.
So the Conformists started in 1996. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we actually made a decision to start a band in November of 96.
How old were you then? Is that high school age?
Oh, yeah. We were seniors in high school. Mike and I are almost the same age. We were 17. We were young.
Yeah. So was Mike a friend before the band?
Yeah, we met in high school pretty quickly on when we started. September 93, became friends right away. And we were both way into music, but we hadn't started playing it ourselves for a few years. It just made sense. He was writing. I got a guitar. We actually both got guitars around the same time, but I think his interest in that trailed off and I kept going with it. So it just made sense. And then I had an old friend from grade school who was interested in drums, had an uncle who was in a band. So he had access to equipment and stuff. And that came together, I think the month after me and Mike in November decided we should try a band, whatever form that may take. And then Mike had a friend who was, God, I want to say 14 years old, who had just started playing bass. He either had just started playing bass a month or two before we asked him, or he hadn't even started playing bass before we asked if he wanted to be in a band. Maybe he just talked about bass. It was something ridiculous like that. But he was a really, fast learn. So it ended up working out at that time.
So what music did you and Mike bond over back in the day?
We were both metalheads, Metallica was a common one, and there was Pantera and some other stuff. I think Sepultura early on.
What's your favorite Metallica record?
Man, I feel like I'm always torn between Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning.
I'm always torn between Puppets and Justice for All.
And Justice for All is really good. I think I like it more than some of the older fans. I get the sense that older Metallica fans think that was the beginning of their turn. And I can kind of see that. And Justice for All was the first Metallica album I got into, so it holds a special place for me. I had an older brother who turned me on to them. I think it was a little bit after And Justice for All came out. So that was important for me. But start to finish, Master of Puppets is perfect. So I think I'm going to have to...
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that one. And, you know, Cliff Burton, come on.
That's a good pick. Like Master of Puppets is why I started playing guitar. So like that record means a lot to me.
That's cool.
I heard that record and I'm like, man, the song Master of Puppets is so cool. I need to learn how to play that. And
am I going to hear that in all of your songs now?
No, I should like dust that off because at one point I was able to play that song like start to maybe like the second solo, and then after that, like I'm not like a lead player. So after that, I'm like, I think I'm done. Right. The rest is great though. So yeah, you guys started out into metal, Metallica, Pantera. What else were you guys bumping? Like, what else were you guys listening to aside from metal? Was it mainly metal at the time?
It was mostly metal. Yeah, I know for me, I started out, God, it was, I remember liking like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. And, you know, I was just, that's what I had access to. And then I just wanted things that were a little bit louder and heavier and faster. And so that turned into Metallica and other things like that. I just sort of went this direction where I wanted everything to get heavier and heavier. I think that's pretty common for people finding their way through metal.
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me, where it starts with Metallica and then you end up at Slayer and then it gets to like obnoxious free jazz sort of shit. Just like the quest of trying to find whatever is like the weirdest, most annoying thing ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was my trajectory for sure. Just eventually you're just listening to static.
When did you first start getting into like the PRF world of like Electrical Audio and Steve Albini, like Big Black and Shellac?
Oh, let's see. I think I first heard of, sorry, I'm bumping the microphone. You know, I had an idea to get a bag of potato chips or like peanut brittle or something and just chew it the entire interview. And
I'm totally down for that. That'd be awesome.
I know there are people that want to murder people over that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes I could be one of those people, but I also think it would be funny to be the one causing that pain. So I think I heard of Big Black through Nirvana. Getting into Nirvana was like a huge gateway for a bunch of other bands. I picked up Atomizer, I think it was, and it just blew me away. It was so different from other stuff I had heard. And then from there, I just went on to bands that I knew he recorded because In Utero had such a different sound from other records I had heard at that time, 93. It just sounded like a band in the room with you, you know, which was really exciting. And so I really liked that very live rock sound. And I just sort of made my way from there, you know, Rape Man and Shellac. And then, gosh, I'm trying to remember how I got onto the Electrical Audio board. It was right at the beginning. I think I was just creeping around before I joined up, but I want to say it started in 2003. And then I joined a board in like 2004. And then it was a few years later when a bunch of people met up at the 2006 Touch and Go 25-year reunion show. And sort of, without calling it a collective yet, formed like a grouping of bands that all hung out on that forum and had a common aesthetic and played a show after the Touch and Go thing. And that sort of started what they called the PRF barbecue. After that, we played the first official one in 2009. That's a roundabout way of getting to how we got into the PRF stuff.
So like when the Conformists in the early years, was it then always the goal to record at Electrical Audio? Was that always something you had in mind?
No, I wouldn't say it was. The earliest goal was to record as cheap as possible, which doesn't always equal a great recording. It was near October of 98. We recorded with this guy, and I don't even remember how we met up with him. It was one of these friend of a friend situations. His name was Jody Jones, and he played in like a white guy blues band. And he had this, he redid his entire studio in this city over in Southern Illinois, Wood River. And he was just starting to record other people besides his own projects. And I think we were one of the first like bands that he didn't personally know that recorded in his basement. And he offered us like a flat rate of, I think it was $500 to just record until we were done. We thought that was great. And it turned out the results weren't great. And, you know, part of that was the songs we had at that time. We were in a transitional period with a new drummer who would go on to play with us until 2007. After our very first drummer, my childhood friend, Zach, who was just not really a great fit for what we ultimately wanted to do. We had this old batch of songs that weren't so hot. And a couple new songs that were more in the direction we'd wanted to go. And so the songs weren't that great. And he had like a DAT setup, and, he was eager to use effects on this channel and that. And it was just not ultimately what we wanted it to be. And no one will ever hear those recordings.
It's too bad.
Yeah, it's too bad. Sorry.
What's the first official Conformist release?
We did a tape that we made ourselves in '99. So I guess if the first official one, like if we're going to have a discography about it, would be the 7-inch Black Dahlia Hatchet that came out in 2000. But before that, we did have a professionally recorded 5-song cassette. We ended up meeting up with this guy named Chris Deckard, who was recording in this old newspaper factory in downtown St. Louis, the Globe Democrat building. He had a bunch of wild ideas and was sort of open to anything. And he was closer to our age, so it was a much better fit. The songs we were doing at that time were starting to get, to how we wanted things to be. I still like that tape. It's not great, but you can hear where we're going on it, And the recording quality I really liked it, because we're able to put the drums out in the factory at times. I mean, it was this guy alone in this huge, imagine like a building where they would make newspapers, right? And it was just him renting out this space, but he had access to certain parts of the building, so we could wander around, and it had a great natural reverb. And yeah, there was some great sound there.
So I've read a few interviews with you guys, and I recall reading that you guys don't really like talk about what the direction will be. Is that the case? The direction of the music, like what the aesthetic is?
Yeah, I think it just kind of happens.
So
we know what we want, and it doesn't really require a game plan too much. I guess there are certain aspects that do, but we don't have an abiding vision for each album or anything like that.
So like across the discography then, like how would you describe the progression of the music, if there is like one at all? Or it just seems like each one is its own thing and you just decide if it's good or not?
Yeah, pretty much. I think we decide a record is about done when we get close to about 30 minutes of music. We tend to like a shorter album. So I think it's the first and second albums are 30 minutes and something seconds long. And then the third one, 900, is like 31 minutes. And then Divorce is, 36 minutes or something like that. And that's without trying specifically for that. We always have managed to keep it between 30 and 35 minutes of music. So after the inefficient filtering process of getting our stuff together, we just decide we have, 6, 7, 8 songs, whatever it is. This is an album.
Would you guys be open to like making a 40-minute record, or would that be a point of contention within the band?
That is crazy.
That's too long for you guys?
No, I think we'd be open to it. It just hasn't worked out that way yet. There's something about a record, I think we all think, that just works perfectly well in that 30 to 35 minute range. I like shorter records. So
you guys are also known for having sets that are, I could describe it as kind of performance art-ish. So like playing a pre-existing recording, and that's a show, or using air horns and firecrackers. Like, how did that come about?
Sorry, I was taking a drink. Yeah, I think we've always just been into that sort of thing, playing with the audience. More than anything, amusing ourselves. So you could go out and you could do a solid rock set, but why not do something way more interesting? I think was at the core of it. I don't know. There's something really fun about going out there and pushing buttons, and not to just be a total troll about it, but if you can do something that you enjoy, maybe other people will also enjoy it. That's unexpected. And I think we've all been fans of Andy Kaufman, some of that kind of stuff.
Have there been like any performance art ideas that you guys wanted to do, but maybe thought like, okay, that's going like too far, or that's like too weird?
I'm trying to think if anything felt like it went too far. Yeah, there have been a lot of ideas that we either haven't gotten to yet or just decided not to do because it was too much work or whatever it was. But what was it? We had one, the closest to going too far was we had one idea to block the doors, like play in front of an exit and basically create like a fire situation. Like not let people be able to leave. And I think there were like several space heaters involved. We thought that would be fun to just make everyone sweat it out. Yeah, I think that's about it as far as going too far. But we've had conceptually other things that would just require a lot of time devoted to getting it to happen. You know, when you have one really complex set, you're talking about one show that comes and goes in 35, 40 minutes, and you're devoting a month to that. So that's time not writing or playing the old songs and keeping them in shape. One thing I've always wanted to get to that I think maybe we eventually will get around to is like a Russian nesting doll set. We've done this a few times in part where we have a song and mid-measure in the song, it stops and starts playing a different song. And we finish that song and then immediately pick up back where we left off from the other song. But one of the ideas I had was to do that as a palindrome for an entire set involving like 6 or 7 songs. And it would require not stopping. So if you break a string, you're screwed. But technically, it would be a real pain in the ass to pull off. But I think we could pull it off. So you would start like song A, somewhere within that song, you stop and you start playing another song from the beginning. Song B stops. You pick up on song C, on and on until maybe you get to like a 5th song. And then you play from beginning to end for that song. And then you pick up from the song previously where you had interrupted, finishing that song, and then immediately finish the song that came before that song, and so on.
I think I'm too dumb for that. That makes my brain itchy.
Maybe if I plotted it out, it would make more sense, but I think it'd be fun. Itchy brain, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys aren't as lazy as Sean Yowie would make people think.
Well, like I said, they set a really high standard. I know they were practicing, I think it was 3 days a week for several hours each time. And I don't think they really take breaks or stop and look at each other or talk.
Yeah, that guy's a weird robot.
Yeah, I mean, they're machines for sure. Yeah, part of our practice has always involved a social element, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's important to me, you know. A band is supposed to be fun. Not that Yowie isn't a fun band or anything. We just have a different approach, and I don't feel like we've been missing out on writing or anything like that. It's just part of band practice is getting together and making each other laugh and shooting the shit.
How many times have you guys toured Europe?
3. 2011, 2017, and 2018.
If I recall correctly, when you guys go to Europe, you prepare multiple sets that could be played live, right?
We did the first, I think it was just the first time. We had 3 different sets, and the idea was to have them all be pretty different from each other so we could have something ready to go depending on the situation or how we felt. And we got there and we ended up playing, I think almost every show, we just played one set that we, I guess, decided ended up being the best set. We might have played one of the other 3 and been like, that one's okay, but set B is really great. I'm pretty sure for 2017 and 2018, we just wrote one set and used that. Yeah.
So like among the 3 potential sets, like what were the different flavors? Like how do they differ from each other?
I want to say one was more rock oriented, and another would have like maybe 2 way too long songs in it. So a little more room to breathe. And a third was, I don't even remember at this point, like how different they were. Just that was the idea going in, is that we'd have 3 different sets to choose from.
So the set list is always fixed then? Because like I know it's Fugazi, they never wrote like a set list. They would just call out songs. And to me that would require learning a lot more stuff. And then 2, my own drummer would be like, well, the problem with that is then like there's no control over how the set flows. Like it would just feel kind of jagged maybe.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And Fugazi managed to do it and make it work, but I don't think we could ever do that. I want to know, I think we just want to have too much control over how things are going. So we couldn't keep it that loose. We may have tried that once or twice. And yeah, I think the idea was just, you end up with a set that sounds that way. It sounds like you were just deciding what to do in the moment. And that's not great for us.
What are some of the more unusual ideas that you guys have used for like coming up with materials? I remember reading that you wanted to learn how to play a Judas Priest record backward to see if that would give you any inspiration. And I think I remember talking to Pat or something, and then like sometimes you guys will pitch ideas like, what if there was just a part that had like weird symbol shit going on for like 3 minutes?
Yeah, so what I was originally saying about how Chris or I will bring a riff to practice and then we sort of build it up from there. That's one aspect of writing, and another aspect is a lot more conceptual. We'll just have an idea. Like, for instance, on the first album, we have a song called Dial Tone, which feels so quaint now. Like, I don't know if younger people even know what a dial tone is anymore, but the idea behind that was to use all 4 of our phone numbers as the rhythmic basis for the structure. So we did that. So it has a kind of random feel to it, even though it's pretty tightly written and there are tempo changes around the rhythm and stuff. Like the song Reverse Alchemist on Divorce. I remember thinking that one when I was coming up with a riff, like, this would be a good song to strictly have it be a rhythmic exercise with almost no melodic content. And it is that pretty much. I mean, it's basically 2 notes going back and forth. So it has sort of a ping-ponging, an off-kilter ping-ponging feel to it. So that was the concept at the outset. And like Times Beach is a song I definitely felt like it'd be cool to write a guitar part that doesn't repeat, but not in a math rock kind of way, in a way that it has a central riff, but it's almost as if I'm constantly misremembering the riff. I don't know. I was trying to like write a part that almost has like a deja vu aspect to it. Like, how does it go again? Wait, I think it's this way. So the meter constantly changes. That song has never been played the same way twice, purposely. So there's stuff like that, like Meredith Knezovich, I think that's on 300, it is supposed to feel kind of like a backwards song. Not nearly as conceptual as the Judas Priest idea, which I wanted to do. I think Sean was up for doing it. I wanted to do it strictly as a side project.
Oh,
But yeah, this was years ago. I kind of forgot about this, but I wanted to try playing music that sounded like a recording being played backwards, which would require a lot of volume pedal work and swells and reverse cymbal buildups with hard cuts. And technically it was going to be a real bastard to pull off. But I think it's doable. It's not, I haven't decided, it's not off the table yet. I don't know when it will happen, but I'd still like to give it a try.
On the album Divorce, there's that song with the parentheses or whatever. I can't be bothered to remember it. But is like the title of that song anyway indicative of like the underlying structure or some weird fuckery you guys put in there?
No.
Compositionally, no?
It is not. I wish. That's a much better idea. Often the titles don't have anything to do with the songs. We just come up with titles that we think are funny, or sometimes they're just placeholders and they remain the title. No, it has nothing to do with the structure. They're completely independent of each other. A lot of the titles end up being inside jokes and things like that.
Compositionally, the songs, these are flowers, are these flowers, and I don't know what the other permutations of that are. Like they're not related. They're just like kind of like an inside joke.
These are flowers, these are not flowers, and are these flowers?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, unrelated. Just thought they'd be good titles. I mean, it's sort of like 200, 300, 900. They have nothing to do with each other.
Will the next album be like 100 thing? Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying it gives the appearance of a grand theme, but there's nothing there.
Like, will you guys continue with the 100 naming scheme in terms of like the next Conformist release?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. One of the ideas instead of Divorce was to call it 100. I like the out of order aspect of that, but we went with Divorce, and I think that was a good choice. One idea we had, which is completely insane, was to have one of the albums be titled the same as the previous album with all of the same artwork and everything, to where we couldn't even tell, you know, when we have stuff at the merch stand, which is what.
Yeah.
They have 2 albums called 300 with identical artwork. I mean, it's it's suicide. It's total self-sabotage. But something about it really, really strongly appeals to me.
That is a funny idea. That is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone has done that, because why would you? Which just makes me want to do it, right?
I know the band Old Man Gloom put out 2 records, both entitled Ape of God, I think, and they made it difficult to differentiate between the two.
Oh, that's great. I do know the band, if you're familiar with the English progressive band Gentle Giant. Their debut album, and then I think it's their 3rd or 4th album, Three Friends. So the first one is self-titled, and whichever order the next one is called Three Friends. They have the same cover. There's a variation that does have a different cover, but you could still sort of tell them apart. I think the one that's called Three Friends has that somewhere written small on the cover, but it's got just this big face on it. Someone's done something like that, but they haven't gone all the way as far as I can tell.
Man, I would personally love to see Impossible to Differentiate Conformist thing like on the merch table.
It may happen.
And I'm just scrutinizing the cover, going like looking for a hint. It's like, which is this the new one, or I don't know.
Yeah, no hints.
So you play with a very reduced pedal board. Like, what's the impetus for that?
Yeah, no pedal board. I think just for the sake of simplicity is how it started. Then it kind of became a challenge to mimic effects rather than using pedals to achieve certain sounds. And I liked how it challenged me. Like, I'd kind of like this part to have a slapback delay effect. Well, I'll just play that way, which I've done. So yeah, I don't know. I think the way I change my sound is a little different than a lot of guitarists, where I have more of a subtractive rather than additive approach. So I start with just a tube amp cranked up. I get the distortion and the volume that I want, and that's my basis. And every change comes from taking away from that sound. So I use the volume pedal to shape the level of the distortion and get all the dynamics out of that. I have one distortion pedal, the DoD Buzzbox. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. It's supposed to be a combination of MXR Blue Box and Rat, I believe. So there's an octave effect and a really heavy distortion effect blended. And I've used that. I used that at the end of one song, the last song on the first record, for about 30 seconds, and then about 15 seconds on the second album. Almost nothing has effects on it. I don't know. I like that approach. I like the way it forces me to think about getting different sounds out of the guitar.
Are there guitar players out there that are pedal nerds that you enjoy?
You?
I don't have that many pedals. Like who?
You don't have that many pedals, you said?
I don't think so.
I mean, compared to just having a tuner and a volume pedal.
Making me feel bad. You're going to hate the new Imelda shit then.
No, I doubt that. No, I think you do pedals right. When I hear your song, everything feels like it's in place and it doesn't feel forced, which I think some people with the big surfboard full of pedals do. It feels like, well, I got it, I should use it, right? And so you feel a sound sort of shoehorned into a song. Yeah, I love the way you play. And there's a band in town called Subtropolis that I really, really like. An old friend, Dave Todd, really knows how to use pedals effectively. And again, doesn't ever use something unless it's necessary. I'm not opposed to pedals. I like lots of music that use effects and things. It's just for my own personal playing. I like the way it forces me into a box.
So then I take it that you're not much of a gear nerd.
Not at all. I couldn't tell you what pickups I have, and I mean, it's pretty bad. I really don't know a lot of that stuff just because it hasn't really interested me. I found a guitar I liked, and then I was done. And I found an amp that I really like. I'm like, all right, well, that amp sounds great. Now I don't have to think about amps ever again. Which is another thing that's different from other guitarists. I never been a gear nerd or anything like that. And certain things, I guess, for more practical reasons, like after touring a couple times in Europe, I wanted to find an amp that I could take with me that was really small. We had rented equipment, and then the very first tour, we were sort of surprised at every venue with whatever they had rounded up to use. As you can imagine, it could be frustrating when you don't know how you're going to sound each night.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have something that would be consistent but also portable, and I ended up getting the I don't know if you're familiar with the Quilter amps.
I don't think so.
They're these little tiny amps. I guess they would be, are they class D? I don't know. See, I don't know any of this stuff. But they're probably 5 or 6 pounds. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. And they're known for having more of a tube sound. So I was trying to get something as similar as I could to the Sovtek MiG 100 that I play through. And I found someone who was selling one here locally on Craigslist. And I got an MXR 6-band EQ. And I was able to get like about 95% of the sound I get through my Sovtek in this tiny little package. So that was something as far as gear that I focused on, but it was purely for practical purposes.
I feel like I should have prepared more questions for you. I'm pretty much out, so I'm just gonna wing it.
It's because I don't give very long answers.
What tuning do you play in?
It's D standard, DGCFAD. What I think of is the Nirvana Lithium Tuning.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, I used to tune my guitar to Lithium because it starts out with the first open D before I got a tuner. I did that for years. It's embarrassing to say.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I like the sound of a full step down. I think it sounds just a little fuller. And so anyone who's played bass with us has also tuned a full step down to match.
How many drummers have you guys been through?
Let's see. Well, there was my friend Zach, who was in the band from 96 to 98. And then Tom O'Neill from 98 to 2007. And then we had Sean O'Connor, 2007 to 2009. Pat joined in 2009. So that's 4.
So I remember hearing that when Pat joined the band, you guys had to untrain him in terms of how to play drums. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, we unschooled him on drumming. I think the process is just, he was familiar with the songs from being at our shows. And so that was part of what made him a good fit. And we had seen him play with his bands and we knew he was a great drummer. He just had to, I think, work it out on his own, listening to the music to get the structures down. And we would walk him through things. And I think more the stuff you're talking about is we would have to get him to do things that most drummers aren't used to doing, like ignore this part. Like you have to ignore the guitar and the bass during this section and then join back up with us, but you cannot listen to us because it's supposed to be not together. There are certain parts like that where you just have to tune out the other people in the band, which is, I know it's not how a lot of bands work, but it's something we like to play around with.
Yeah, what I love about his playing, it's like a weird caveman-ish style that is just, yeah, I mean, I haven't thought of it past the caveman description, but it's like a really weird caveman type of thing, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that's apt. Pat does really lay into the drums. That's always been important for us, for someone to hit a lot harder than they need to and probably use bad technique. But yeah, Pat is just amazing because he's up for anything, which you kind of have to be in this band. Any crazy idea we've thrown at him, he's been up for it and somehow makes it work. So
like when he brought in the hi-hat with the 90-degree bent angle from like that was thrown in like a machine press, like yeah. Was that something you guys talked about, or did he just bring that in and you guys are like, that is awesome?
We've had that around since Tom was in the band. I'm trying to think how that even started. I think there was, what was it? I think there was like a hi-hat that was trashed. It had a crack in it or something that was on the floor in our practice space. And a friend stood on it just to be funny, like put one foot over one edge and then sort of maneuvered the other foot to taco it into itself. And then, of course, we thought, well, let's see what that sounds like. And it ended up finding its way onto a stand and it sounded great. And we called it the Clank, and they last maybe a year or two. And then we have to make a new one. And that's just always ended up like a sound for the band. I don't know. Doesn't really sound like anything else. Yeah,
and I can't think of any other drummer, even those that like do like weird prepared shit that has like a hi-hat or cymbal like that. So that's a unique contribution to the art form.
Yeah, we're gonna patent it, and then there will be a zillion Clank, and it'll be part of our upcoming sponsorship deals. Is there a ongoing prank war between the Conformists and Yowie? I think Sean thinks there is.
He seems very intent in like trying to foment some sort of beef between you guys for his amusement.
Right. Well, we're at this point several years behind. I didn't really realize this until I heard an interview with him that one of the things they did to clown on us in, I want to say 2009, was learn a set of 5 or 6 of our songs and play it before we went on. Amazing idea. Fantastic. And they really went all the way with it. And they had 3 different people come up who were made to look like Mike with his tattoos and everything. And they just did a fantastic job. I mean, like, played a note perfect set of ours as well. And I feel bad because Jeremiah and Jimbo, who was in the band at the time, Little Pumpkin, had learned all of our songs, but didn't know that we tuned down to D standard. So they were playing everything in a much harder, like, you know, fingered way on the guitar, and thought we had written all this stuff that's even harder to play than it already is. And I'm like, man, I wish you guys had ruined the joke and just told us you were doing this. I could have saved you a lot of trouble and told you to just tune down a whole step, make it easier on you. They did that, and I didn't realize that was supposed to be like the first practical joke and what he expected as a series of ongoing jokes, which we'd done with another band before. But they might have just set the bar so high that it didn't even occur to us that we could come back with anything. I mean, they really went all out.
Yeah, they're a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, the best weirdos.
What is Little Pumpkin like? Because a buddy of mine has been trying to get in touch with him, so maybe like we could interview him on this podcast, but like that dude's pretty much a ghost. So like, what is he like? I saw him play in Yowie once before Damning with Faint Praise came out, but I never talked to him because I just thought, like, I don't know what to say to this guy. He's a weirdo. So yeah, what is he like?
Does anyone know? I mean, I don't know. You're not going to interview that guy. No one's going to interview him. I mean this truly. The best way to describe him, and I've heard other people use the same word, is he is an alien. He truly is. He's not a human. It's some other life form in a human's body who plays guitar in a way that makes absolutely no sense and sounds different from any other guitarist I've ever heard. And that's just his guitar. Like, I've talked to him a few times. Yeah, it's a very surreal experience. I know Sean doesn't know much about him. Certain things I've learned through his recent interviews. Apparently they didn't know what state he even lived in for like a decade, which is really funny. I didn't know that, but yeah, he's a very, very, very strange person. Like, I think probably the most eccentric person I've ever met, and genuinely that way. He has not cultivated this. He just truly is like, he's an alien. There's no other way to put it.
And that's why I'd like to talk to him, and just more people should know about this alien creative person who's impossible to get in touch with.
No, it'd be fantastic to pick his brain, but I mean, it feels impossible. Like, well, you're not going to interview that guy. Of course you can't interview him. It doesn't feel possible to me that you could track him down, and even if you could, get him to speak into a microphone.
That one's going to be my white whale interview.
Aim big.
I felt like I had another question.
Shoot.
How many new songs do you guys have so far?
We have, I think, just about 5. So we're getting close to that 30-minute mark. But yeah, we have 4 that are pretty much completely done. I don't want to say no changes will be made before recording, but they're at the high 90% mark for the structures being where we want them. And then we have several parts that are in flux right now that we're putting together. So I think we have a song that's just about getting there. That would be number 5.
I think when I saw you guys last play, I think there was a new song in there, right? Was it the one that like you had to restart?
That could be, yeah. I want to say it would make sense. It'd be the first of this batch, which we called Song for Rink and P.O. Sound. Yeah, you very likely would have heard that one song.
I'm going to have to go online and see if there's footage of that. So assuming that COVID doesn't turn into like mega Ebola in 2021, do you think you guys would be ready to record?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. One thing I've been worried about is electrical audio, the place where, if I have my way, it'll be the only place we ever record. I mean, I see no reason to go anywhere else. It's everything we want in the studio. Hopefully they will still be around as a place. I mean, everything is up in the air right now. I think financially, like most people, they've taken a hit. I don't know what their situation will be like by the time we're ready to go in and record.
Yeah, it's man. I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day. Like, I guess the state of touring, considering that, especially at the DIY level, like, is anyone gonna want a bunch of like sweaty people to just congregate in their basement and have like random out of town weirdos like crash on their floor and use their shitter? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, everyone's going to reevaluate that sort of contact after all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hope things are able to go back to normal as much as possible because I miss it. I'm sure you do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I miss sleeping on uncomfortable floors and playing to no one. And I really do.
What's your fondest memory of, like, in terms of like the weirdest place you crashed at, like on tour?
Oh man. I can't say this is fond, but one that really sticks out. And I think Sean can talk about this as well. We played a show in Indianapolis on a 2007 East Coast tour that we did. Our first tour out to the East Coast. Sean was newly in the band, and we played in Indianapolis at this place called Legion of Doom. And it was supposed to be like a 5-band bill. I think most of the bands were from out of town, maybe all of them. And every single band dropped off the bill. Except for us. I mean, this is the place where we were staying, right? So we're there, we have our gear, let's set up and play in this guy's basement. And this wasn't like just some podunk half-ass venue that just started a week before. I think is a house that several versions of people have lived in for years, and they've done shows for a long time. So it was a well-known venue. There were other things going on that night, as happens sometimes. And so a bunch of other shows drew away from any audience maybe that would have been coming to that one, in addition to the audience for all the bands that just decided, yeah, fuck this. So we ended up playing in the basement to the guy, our host, and that was it. And no one else. We played to no one else. We just played to him. And I still enjoyed it. It was still fun. And why not?
Did that one guy like it?
He liked it.
Cool.
And that's great. That's kind of good enough for me. It was disappointing that we weren't playing to like a packed basement. Of course, that would be fun, but it made for a good story. But then we stayed at his house, and this was, I want to say it was like the dead of August or something. And it was so goddamn hot inside this house. There was no circulation inside. They had like box fans in the corners and stuff. And we were sleeping on like a half broken couch. You sleep on like a fold out couch or something that has the bar running through the middle. I feel like everywhere someone was sleeping, there was like something uncomfortable about it. And then it just felt like it was about 110 degrees inside there. And all of us were tossing and turning all night. And I think it was Mike slept out on the porch at some point, decided like, I'm just going to go sleep outside, which was the smart choice. And then woke up when the sun came up and just went for a walk or went to the store or something like that. That was the worst night of sleep I've ever gotten in my entire life.
Who's the loudest snorer in the band?
Pat. Yeah, Pat. Previously it was Jim. Yeah, I think Pat takes it.
Who has the stinkiest farts in the band? Is it also Pat?
No, I'm not sure who that would be.
That means it's you.
Yeah, I guess that's what that answer means, doesn't it? I think we're all like pretty courteous and don't do that to each other too much. So I don't know. Maybe it is me. It's probably me.
Final question. What are you listening to lately?
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you about this as well. Like, see what you've been checking out for 2020. Well, one of my favorite bands, Harry Pussy, put out, I guess you could call it an EP, but it's a 7-inch and it has several songs on them, all short. It's called Superstar. I think that's one of the best releases of 2020. There's this guy we've played with in Europe, based in London, named Steph Ketteringham. He put out a record called Cry and Sing this year. That's just him with a guitar. Amazing voice. And I think you'd really like this guy. Plays guitar in a way that's, I'm not sure exactly how he's doing it. I think he plays with the bridge, but he manages to bend the strings and sort of torture the guitar in a way that sounds like it's melting at times.
What's his name again?
Steph Kett is what he goes by.
Okay.
STEFKETT. He was in a band previously. What's that?
Based out of London?
Yeah, based out of London. He was in a band previously called Shield Your Eyes, who are also really good. But his solo album that he put out this year, Cry and Sing, is just fantastic. Cheer Accident put out one, another one of my favorite bands. Fringements 1. I think it's going to be an ongoing series of albums, just like little odds and ends that they've done over the years. The new Terms record from Chris Troll.
Hell yeah, Terms.
Really great. Yeah. Let's see. I really like the new Deerhoof, Future Teenage Cave Artists. I don't know if you've heard that one.
I think I have. I think I've like lost interest with them over the years, but they're still a solid band.
They are. And, you know, I've never been a huge Deerhoof. Excuse me. I've never been a huge Deerhoof fan. I think I'm trying to think which one it was early on that I really liked. And then the other stuff didn't quite grab me as much. Apollo, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, that one's good.
Anyway, yeah, their most recent one is just a fantastic fucked up album that I believe they all recorded like by sending each other bits and pieces of recordings and assembled that way, which is really impressive. It doesn't have that feel to it, but Facts, if you're familiar with them, Void Moments, that's a really great record. Oh, and Horse Lords, The Common Task.
They have a new one out? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it came out, I think it was one of the first releases that I got into this year. Yeah, I want to say it came out February or March. Just incredible, amazing. And then there's been a bunch of PJ Harvey vinyl reissues. Love it. What have you been listening to that's new in 2020 or new for you?
You've put me in the spot and I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, go quickly.
2020.
Say Santana.
Yeah, Santana. Supernatural.
Yep.
I'm drawing a blank. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of comedy podcasts. That's not really musical.
That's not music.
I listen to a lot of Autechre, even though like the two new records they have out this year, like the first one is called, what is it? Sign. I thought was
Is that how you pronounce it? I've never known how to pronounce that band name.
I think it's something like that. Autechre or Autechre. Yeah,
no, that totally makes sense now that you say it, but it took me even a second to know what you were referencing. I think in my mind, I always said Autechre or something stupid like that.
I think they'd be okay with that. I think in an interview, they said that as long as it starts with that AU sound up front, then the rest of it, you could do whatever.
I like that. That's a good way to say that.
Autechre. And then their second one this year, plus I like that one a lot more than the first one.
Okay.
But besides that, man, I don't want to come off as being like a dum-dum who doesn't stay up to date on all the hot new jams.
No, you're not a dum-dum. I did put you on the spot, and for that, I apologize.
I'm trying to think, what are the hot jams according to Pitchfork? Whatever they're talking about, I love, and it's the fucking best ever. I remember...
Yeah, what did Pitchfork give a 9.3 this year?
I heard like there's a new Fiona Apple record out. I only heard it once, but I liked it. Like I'm a big fan of hers. The weird thing with Pitchfork is like, how do they come up with like the points? Like what differentiates like 6.1 to 6.5? That's so stupid.
I'm sure it's very scientific.
Like it's one of my dreams to be reviewed by Pitchfork and be shit upon by them. Like that would be a huge badge of honor to get like a Pitchfork 5.2. I would turn that into a shirt. That'd be so fucking awesome.
There must be a 0.0.
They did. I think their lowest rated record was like a solo album by the main dude from Dismemberment Plan. They gave it like a 0.8 or something like stupid. But I think that was their lowest.
Perfect.
All right. Final question. And so just for my own personal edification, you guys have a song called Black People.
We do.
I know that you guys aren't racist wingbats, but I'm just curious, what is that song about?
Well, like I said previously, the titles and the songs don't have anything to do with each other. Usually we just come up with something that we think is funny or sticks for whatever other reason. And good, I'm glad you asked about that one. That's one that we came up with that there are only a couple things in the band that I think, oh, that was a dumb idea. We shouldn't have done that. Because usually we put more thought into things. And that's one example where we definitely didn't think it out. It just came up. And I believe I'm the one who named that song and just thought it would make for a good song title. I mean, it's really as dumb and simple as that, which is, flippant. of course it's going to have more. It's going to have more to it coming from 4 white guys. You know, I wasn't thinking that at the time, which is dumb and thoughtless. But yeah, I mean, there's the idea that if we were to like put out 300 on vinyl or something like that, would we change the song title? And I wouldn't want to do that. I'd rather just have someone like you did ask me about it and then just explain. Yeah, it was just a dumb song title. It just sounded like an interesting thing to name a song at the time. And, you know, I mean, one thing I wouldn't want is for someone listening to us to see that title and like a black person to hear that and feel singled out. That would be awful. I wouldn't want that. So, and that way it's pretty dumb and amateurish, but you know, that's that.
And as I feel like a dumbass just saying this, as a non-white person, I will say that having crashed with several of you guys, I could say you guys are not racist. So please do not cancel the Conformists. They're not nut jobs. With that being said, I think maybe the new Imelda release should be called Orientals or something.
Oh, go for it, please.
There's a part of me that just wants to like play the Asian card and just like kind of piss off like super white woke people who get offended for me, like
on your behalf.
Yeah, because they're doing me a fucking favor. That's a whole nother can of worms. That
oh, what, you don't like being tokenized?
I mean, obviously no, but also like it hasn't helped me. Like a good thing that's come from like the woke stuff is that yes, we're paying more attention to like marginalized voices, so like black musicians, queer, like female, but like that discussion doesn't seem to involve Asian people. And you know, there's a few of us in the scene, but like no one ever talks about highlighting Asian voices. So maybe I have to start like a festival called like Ching Chong or some shit like that. And I don't even know if I'm gonna have to cut that out, but I might have to run that by a few people to see if I'm like being nutty. But if we're gonna be woke, then someone fucking book my band because there's an Asian guy in it. I don't know.
You know, I think that you're right about all of that, but I think the part that gets missing in the quote woke conversation is allowing people the full humanity to make fun of themselves. Which, if you're really going to humanize someone, you should allow them to be able to make fun of things as well. You know,
yeah, I think so too.
It's a different kind of othering to speak on someone's behalf and walk on eggshells for them. I mean, some of the people with the most fucked up senses of humor I know are, you know, people in the LGBTQ community, and they're not sensitive. They know when people are joking. They understand context. You know, it's okay.
But I'm just a fragile POC, and I can't take anything.
You need protecting, doesn't it?
Yes, please.
Ugh, it's incredibly condescending. Yeah.
Like I remember, like a buddy of mine, he posted something on Facebook, and obviously he won't be named, but he said he had a post that I think was genuine. Like my fellows who are POC, like I'm here for you guys, and I'm like, I don't need your help, motherfucker. Like what are you gonna do for me? You gonna cut me a check? I'm fine. Take it easy.
Well, also just, speaking on behalf of a group as if they all have the same thoughts is a little presumptuous, right?
I'm like getting all heated up from this stuff because like I don't, because like, it's so weird because part of me feels like, well, I shouldn't talk about this because like, I don't know why, but at the same time, like, hey, I'm a POC voice, so you motherfuckers have to listen to me, white people. But I don't know. It's
right,
all,
isn't it the catch-22?
Yeah, it's all mind-boggling, and I get like heated up, like bottling this shit up inside and just yelling at my white drummer mad about this. And it's like, hey, bro, I agree.
Well, no, it's frustrating because it's set up in a way that the only people who do critique stuff like this almost always are right-wing nut jobs, you know, sitting in a truck talking into their camera phone. And so if you are not of that group, if you actually are on the left and have some things to say, it's kind of immediately shot down. Yeah, I don't know. It gets messy.
I totally lost my train of thought getting into this thing. Okay, so recap: Conformists, not racist / good guys. Dave of Imelda, Oriental, and I'm allowed to say that, people.
Yep.
According to 23andMe, I am 99% Asian. So,
did you actually do the 23andMe?
Yeah, my wife and I did that as like a Christmas gift to like each other. So I'm 99% Asian. Most of that's Filipino. I think like 9% of that is Chinese. And then I always thought like I had a bit of like Southern European, like Spanish, because the Spaniards were up in my people's shit for 400 years. But turns out I'm like a 0.5% British and Irish. So that one is weird to me.
Oppressor.
And I have to check my 0.5% white privilege. I am sorry on behalf of my fellow Asian people who felt traumatized by me being alive.
Step down. Honor the progressive stack. Your turn to talk is number 15.
Oh, I remembered what I was going to say. Like, there's a part of me that wants to, like, for a Halloween set, dress up in yellow face, but I know that I would be offending, like, white people for some reason.
You would really be offending, like, a pasty white 22-year-old woman with a septum piercing who has a lot to say about how you should feel.
Oh, my God. Yeah, and, with that, I think that's all I have lined up for the interview. And is there anything you would like to promote before our time is up?
Nah. If you want to hear the music, go to Bandcamp, type in Conformist. It'll bring something up.
So that's been our time with Chris Dee of the Conformists, one of my favorite bands to see live on tour. And I hope we get to play a show again for the year 2030.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Have a good day.
You too. See you, Dave.